I've played all the mainline Pokemon games since Fire Red, but my first one was Pokemon Emerald, which came out in 2004. As a child, I probably spent the equivalent of 200 plus hours on this one game. I wanted to do a replay with every starter, but I also used a lot of imagination when I was playing this game. I would have May go to school, go up north for Pokemon battles, and then she would go gamble at the game corner. I'd make her go through these whole narrative adventures in my head besides the preset one given to you by the story. I would play with this sense of imagination for years after Pokemon Emerald came out, and it only really ended after I played Black and White because I just started to grow older. I still use this sense of imagination when playing other games, but it definitely doesn't really work with Pokemon anymore. I still felt the thrill of the new Pokemon title, and I still feel that now to an extent, but I mostly just played through the games because they were Pokemon and I loved the series. The games were also my sign that I needed to upgrade my console to the next generation. At the end of the day, I'm an adult now, and these games definitely aren't targeted towards me anymore. But I know the Pokemon Company knows how much nostalgia plays a role into the purchase of these games, especially when adults purchase most of the merchandise. I played Pokemon Violet last year and I had fun with the game despite the various issues that we all know about, and I only recently got around to finishing up the DLC. This is actually the first DLC that I've purchased for Pokemon. I never got around to the DLC in Sword and Shield, so I have some thoughts on it. Teal Mask to me is definitely the weaker of the two DLCs. It focuses on the main character doing a foreign exchange trip to Kitakami region in Mosu Town. You happen to be going while the Festival of Masks is taking place. It's a linear story with very simple plot beats, but I did enjoy it and it was just easy to play. It touches upon the lore of the town and how Ogerpon's story shifts as history passes on between generations, which I always find interesting. The little lore bits of Pokemon always fascinated me, especially like in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl with the history of that region. You also meet these two siblings, which are the main side characters of this DLC. They are Carmine and Kieran. Carmine is pretty much a tsundere, but I really like seeing her interactions as an older sister with Kieran. And Kieran is just a young boy trying to grow into himself and gain confidence, which we will touch upon later because he does gain some confidence. Indigo Disc's story builds up from the ending of Teal Masks, and you have to interact with the students at Blueberry Academy as a exchange student. This is the school where Carmine and Kieran go, and you pretty much have to go through the process of fighting the Elite Four of this school and dealing with Kieran's new character arc. The mechanics of the terrarium in Blueberry Academy are interesting and sort of fun. I like the little tasks they had to complete before you fought each Elite Four member. It broke up the fights nicely, because if it was just another Elite Four fight, I would have been really bored. And also the fact that there's more of a focus on double battles is fantastic because I've always enjoyed double battles. And also some of the fights in this DLC are actually pretty hard. Characters will use more stat boost and battle items, which means you can't just one-shot everyone. I had the most problems with Lacey, which was refreshing because usually I could just steamroll through all these battles. But Lacey's a cute one and probably one of my favorite characters in the Elite Four so far. I don't know, I said so far. She is. There's no more being introduced. Though all the good aspects are held back by horrendous performance issues, I am sadly not surprised that Game Freak didn't patch anything about this game. It is in the exact same state as it was when it released. Sadly, this company knows that people are gonna buy it. I mean, I'm an example. Environments were clipping in and out when they were showing the glory of the terrarium. Some of the battle angles were just atrocious. I would sometimes be up on a Pokemon's butt as they were battling, Or worse, I'd just be in the ground watching the battle go on. Like, the game is playable, but is this really the best we're gonna get? There's also these little mini side quests that you do in the Indigo disc called BBQs. You play through these tiny objectives and you earn in-game currency, but I stopped doing them after I paid to fight all the Elite Four people. You have to pay like a fee to fight the Elite Four, and once you pay those fees, I think that the BBQ points are pretty useless. Unless there's cool stuff you can buy with them, and I just don't know about them. I didn't bother to check. I think one of the more disappointing aspects of Indigo Disc is how they handled Area Zero. Area Zero was such a grand area in the main game, and when you go back there, the deeper levels are pretty boring. The most exciting part of Area Zero was seeing how cute the design of Terrapagos was. Going into more spoiler territory, for Kieran's arc, I personally found his villain arc to be really humorous. As bad as that sounds, I feel like it makes me sound like an ass, but what he did was just such a kid thing to do. And to be fair, he is a kid, and it makes sense. He pretty much becomes an edgy boy because he wants to be strong, and to be strong he turns into an asshole. And it's just so silly. But I know if you're a kid playing this, you'd probably be gasping the whole time, but you know, I'm just too old for this, I guess. And overall, it was cute. It was okay, and the way they conclude his arc, it was predictable, but you know, what are you gonna expect from Pokemon? And also, the empty choices in this section are even more humorous, because you could straight up tell people that you and Kieran aren't friends, and they will somehow twist it into you saying something nice. My last little nitpick is that in the terrarium, the way they divide up the different regions, I realize I didn't explain it before, but the terrarium is Burberry Academy's main battle area. It's split into 4 quadrants, which have 4 different types of terrains, and the way they divide them is with these ugly rainbow walls, and I don't know who or why they went with that art direction, but it's just so ugly. I can only imagine going there as a student and getting a migraine because of how ugly it looks. At the end of the day, this DLC is just more Pokemon content. I was purely motivated by the fact that Reuniclus and Flygon were in it. It's not really game-changing, and didn't even fix the original problems that were in the game. I honestly don't feel very strongly about this DLC at all. I wish I could say I hated it, but I didn't. I didn't love it, I didn't hate it, I just don't really feel anything towards it, besides the fact that I'm happy to have Reuniclus on my team again, and Flygon. It was just an average DLC. If you enjoyed Pokemon Violet despite all its problems, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't pick this up. If you despised Pokemon Violet, then I'm sure you never picked this up, and maybe aren't even watching this video. The main benefit that you'll get from this DLC is the fact that you can catch more Pokemon and more legendaries. Honestly, I'm not even sure where I want Pokemon to go from here. I feel like Scarlet and Violet really put a stain on their reputation. Honestly, I enjoyed Sword and Shield more. It's gone so bad to the point where people think Palworld is like a Pokemon killer, even though it was obviously never going to be a Pokemon killer. If anything, I'm glad that stuff got the conversation going, but Palworld was never going to kill Pokemon. I personally never really fell into the gang of wanting Pokemon to be an open world game. I wasn't against it, especially seeing the potential that was there when Pokemon did really good with it. I personally loved the open world stuff in Legends Arceus, and I do enjoy when Pokemon or Game Freak takes chances with their designs. I just don't know if I have faith in the direction they'll go, especially with this release. If this is what we're gonna get when we request an open world Pokemon, then I don't really want it. Scarlet and Violet is really fun on a surface level, and I can EV train Pokemon so easily to pass the time, but the world is just so empty. I was a little irked by how some of the environments looked, but I was straight up annoyed with how we couldn't even enter buildings. How are we not gonna be able to enter any restaurants or any shops? And you even lose a character of the Pokemon Center because they kept them outside. I had so much fun customizing my character in Pokemon Sword and Shield, and they backtracked on that so much in this game too. I understand we're in a school and we're in a uniform, but that doesn't make sense when there's other students that can customize their uniform. Overall, it's the most shallow form of an open world game, and I don't know if I can trust Game Freak to do an open world concept again after this. I would rather have a tighter, more well-designed, well-thought-out narrative and world than these shallow areas that have no bearing on anything. I will always love Pokemon. I'm very grateful for the impact it had on me in my childhood. I'll always remember my time with Emerald. I'll remember playing in the underground with my friends in Diamond and Pearl and then battling it out on Pokemon Revolution. I may not feel the awe of my childhood again, but I do want Pokemon to make me feel something at least. I hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed writing out my thoughts on this, and Pokemon has such a deep place in my heart, and I just want the series to get better, and if anything, just release something stable and that runs well. I hope that Legend ZA will be able to shift the public opinion a bit, since the rumors do say it's gonna be only set in Lumio City. Maybe that will benefit the game a bit, having a tighter design. Who knows? Who knows? If you watched until the end, what did you enjoy about the Switch era of Pokemon games? Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet. If you've played through both those games, there's gotta be something you like about it, because I know Pokemon fans and they will find something to love despite it all. I think my favorite thing in Sword and Shield was the characters. I actually really did like the characters a lot, and I also like the customization. It was so fun playing with the photo cards in that game. But besides all that, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!